who'd been recognised to have superior knowledge, power, or experience, and anyone trying to overturn that hierarchy would bring shame on the family. The disciples, on the other hand, were compelled to do a new thing and not just go with what they knew. And when Jesus called them, they simply followed without having the first clue as to where he was going to lead them. They allowed their hearts to respond to the irresistible goodness that was in Jesus, which gave them the courage to step outside of their known security and expectations of the day. They were acting counterculturally to the time. And so instead of saying about Jesus, who does he think he is? They were asking, who is this man, Jesus? And in reply, Jesus promised that by accepting him as God, they would be given authority to go out and minister directly to those in need. Now let's consider where the two groups of people got their senses of security from. The synagogue in Nazareth was a place where there was a collection of resources. There was money, crops, livestock that would have all been tithed and brought as an offering. And all who were part of the community would have been entitled to a share of the resources if they needed them. And the physical structure of the synagogue would have given a sense of permanence and security to all who gathered. And this would act as protection against the threatening Roman authorities. Why would you step away from such security? The disciples, on the other hand, in the second story, were sent out with just a staff, no bread, no bag, no money, with sandals on their feet, and only one tunic. And these meagre resources meant that they could not be in any way self-sufficient. And they were expected to rely on the generosity of strangers. And yet God worked as they went about ministering. However, not everything they did was a success. And within these twin tales, we can't get carried away with easy results. Offers of ministry can be accepted or rejected. And amongst Jesus' hometown, he was dishonoured and he was rejected. Thus, when the disciples faced opposition, they didn't stop what Jesus had commanded them to do, but they just shook the dust off their feet and they went elsewhere. And this shows us that no one, neither Jesus nor his followers, can force the gospel down anyone's throat. They had good news to share, but not all would accept it. And now we come to ask ourselves, a people, where we've looked at the principles that Jesus followed in his ministry. And the idea was that we would look at this together as a church family, including the small groups, the midweek service, and the youth and children's groups. Now, I can't say if anything in particular has impacted any of us, but I do know that we can choose. We can choose to be like those in Nazareth and resist the challenge to change. And as we look around, we know that as we go on, the demographic of our church will change over the next few years, and people who we know and love will no longer be with us. And we need to know that God is drawing in others, not just into our synagogue, if you like, into our church, but out on the streets. So, what are we to do? We can resist the challenge to change,